If you stopped chasing him today, would the relationship still exist? No message from you to restart the conversation. No plan made because he never seems to make one. No excuse for why he disappeared again. No careful attempt to bring the connection back to life. Would he move toward you, or would everything become quiet? That question can be frightening because sometimes you already know the answer. And I am not talking about ignoring a man to make him miss you. This is not a test. It is not a strategy to make him chase you back. I am talking about something much simpler. What happens when you stop doing the work that was supposed to belong to both of you? Because you can spend so long keeping a connection alive that your effort begins hiding the truth about the connection itself. You text because he has gone quiet. You make the plans because he rarely does. You bring up the future because months keep passing and he seems comfortable leaving everything undefined. You explain his distance to yourself. He is busy. He is afraid. He has been hurt before. He cares. He just does not know how to show it. So you give more space, more understanding, more time. And eventually, you are not simply experiencing a relationship. You are trying to keep one moving. The love God has for you will not require you to spend your life convincing someone to keep choosing you. That does not mean a woman should never initiate. It does not mean the man has to send every first text, make every plan, or carry every conversation. Healthy love is not a game of who cares less. Chasing is something different. Chasing is when the connection only seems alive because you keep supplying the movement. And this can be especially confusing for a woman of faith because persistence sounds spiritual. You know how to pray when nothing changes. You know how to wait. You know how to believe when circumstances do not look promising. Those qualities are beautiful when they are rooted in trust. But sometimes what looks like persistence is actually fear. You keep doing something because you are terrified of what will happen if you stop. And at some point, trusting God may look less like trying harder and more like releasing what you cannot control. You stop doing his part, and then you watch. Not to punish him, not to create anxiety, not to prove a point. You simply allow reality to become visible. Does he reach for you when you are no longer closing every gap? Does he create time when you stop arranging everything around his schedule? Does he ask what is wrong without needing you to drag the conversation out of him? When clarity is needed, does he move toward it too? This can be uncomfortable because chasing often protects you from seeing the answer. As long as you keep initiating, there is always contact. As long as you keep reopening the door, there is always another chance. As long as you keep explaining his silence for him, you never have to let the silence speak for itself. Then, one day, you get tired. You do not send the message. You do not rescue the conversation. You do not ask if he is okay after he was the one who became distant. And the quiet feels almost unbearable. You reach for your phone. You start wondering if you are being prideful. Maybe I should just check on him. Maybe he thinks I do not care. Maybe one message would not hurt. And sometimes one message would not hurt. But that is not really the question. The question is why silence feels so dangerous to you. Sometimes that discomfort is not God telling you to reach out. Sometimes it is simply revealing how accustomed you became to carrying the connection. You kept it moving for so long that stillness now feels like loss. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Stillness is not always passivity. Sometimes it is surrender. you allow God to be God. You allow Him to be responsible for His choices, and you give yourself permission to see the relationship without constantly interfering with what it naturally produces. That can bring grief, because you may discover that some of what felt like mutual connection was actually your effort being reflected back to you. That does not mean every moment was fake. He may care. He may have genuine feelings for you. But care alone does not create a healthy relationship. Affection and mutuality are not always the same thing. Think about how exhausting it becomes when you are always the one asking, "When can I see you? Are we okay? Where is this going? Did I do something wrong? Why have you been distant?" Any one of those questions can belong in a healthy relationship. The problem is when you have to keep asking because clarity never lasts. Something inside you begins living on alert, and after a while, you may confuse that alertness with passion. The relief when he finally texts feels enormous because the anxiety before the text was enormous. A good weekend feels almost euphoric because you spent the previous week wondering whether he was losing interest. A warm conversation feels deeply intimate because you were afraid he was pulling away. The highs become stronger because the lows are so painful, and that emotional intensity can begin to feel like love. But intensity is not always intimacy. Sometimes it is uncertainty. Healthy love can still be vulnerable. There can be difficult conversations. There can be seasons of stress, distance caused by real circumstances, misunderstandings that need repair. No relationship is effortless. But you should not have to live in a permanent state of pursuit just to know that the relationship exists. There is something worth noticing in the story of Ruth and Boaz. Ruth was not passive. She took a courageous step. She made herself vulnerable. She communicated what she desired, but after that, Boaz responded. In Ruth chapter 3, he tells her that he will handle what needs to be handled. Then in chapter 4, he takes concrete action. Their story is not a dating formula. The Bible is not giving us a rule that says a woman can act once and a man must do everything after that. But the story does show something important. Ruth was not required to manufacture Boaz's willingness. She could make herself known. His response still belonged to him. That matters. You can be honest. You can initiate. You can tell someone you care. You can have a difficult conversation. You can ask where a relationship is going. But once you have made yourself clear, there comes a point when you need to observe what the other person does with that clarity. You should not have to keep supplying both sides. One courageous step is not chasing. Repeatedly trying to persuade someone into movement is. And even when you stop chasing him with your actions, your mind may keep chasing him anyway. You stop texting, but you check whether he watched your story. You stop asking where things are going, but you replay the last conversation trying to decode one sentence. You stop calling, but your phone is still beside you every second. Your hands became still. Your thoughts did not. If you are in that uncomfortable place, trying to stop reaching for someone while your thoughts still keep reaching, I created The Still Point, a 30-day devotional for the woman who is waiting. It was created for those quiet seasons when nothing seems to be moving, and you need somewhere steady to bring your thoughts back to God, instead of letting every silence pull you into another spiral. You can find it in the pinned comment or the first link in the description, because stopping the chase is only the beginning. After that, you have to face what the chase may have been protecting you from. Sometimes it was protecting you from rejection. As long as you kept trying, the story was never completely over. There was always something else you could say. another conversation you could have, another explanation for why he had not stepped forward yet. But if you stop and he does nothing, the answer may begin to feel painfully clear. And part of you would rather remain exhausted than receive an answer you do not want. So, you keep possibility alive. Not because you enjoy being confused, not because you enjoy pursuing someone inconsistent, but because possibility can feel easier than finality. There is still a chance, still a future you can imagine. Still a version of the story where one day he realizes what he has and everything changes. And there is nothing strange about wanting that. Loss is difficult, especially when you are not only losing a person, you are grieving what you pictured with that person. The places you talked about going, the family you imagined, the prayers you prayed, the future you quietly started arranging in your mind. Sometimes you keep chasing the relationship because you are trying to save that future, but you cannot drag someone into a future they are not choosing with you. And you may be afraid that if you stop pursuing, it means you never cared enough. It does not. Love does not become more sincere because you are exhausted. Boundaries do not cancel tenderness. There is a moment in John chapter 6 when many of Jesus' disciples stop following him. Jesus does not run after them, trying to make his teaching easier so they will stay. He turns to the 12 and asks whether they want to leave too. This is not a dating story, of course, but there is something here about love and freedom. Love can invite. Love can tell the truth. Love can make room for someone to respond, but love does not have to control the response. You may have spent months trying to become easier to choose, less emotional, more understanding, more available, less demanding. You waited longer before bringing things up because you did not want to pressure him. You gave him more space. You tried communicating differently. You told yourself to expect less. Some of that may even have been healthy growth. We all need self-awareness. Sometimes we do need to communicate better. Sometimes our expectations need maturity. But there is a point where growth stops being about becoming healthier and starts becoming about making yourself convenient enough that someone will finally stay. You begin shrinking yourself around his hesitation. Then every small sign of interest feels like relief. He calls, and you can breathe again. He makes a plan, and suddenly you feel chosen again. He becomes distant, and your first question is what you need to change. That is a painful way to live. You do not need to keep auditioning for the role of someone's future wife. Your worth existed before he noticed you. It remains whether he stays or leaves. And perhaps underneath all of this is the question you have been afraid to ask God. Can I trust you if this person does not choose me? That may be closer to the heart of the issue. Can you trust God enough to stop forcing movement where you cannot create mutual desire? Proverbs chapter 3 tells us to trust in the Lord with all our heart and not lean on our own understanding. Sometimes our own understanding sounds very convincing. But I know he loves me. I know what we could become. I know why he is afraid. I know he just needs more time. You may even be right about some of that. You still cannot make his decision for him, and trusting God may mean giving another person the freedom to choose, even when you desperately want that choice to be you. That is frightening, but it is also freeing. Because your peace no longer has to depend on whether a message arrives tonight, you do not need to spend the evening composing the perfect text. You do not have to monitor his distance and constantly adjust yourself around it. You do not have to make yourself unforgettable enough to prevent him from leaving. You get to return to your own life. And when you stop compensating for the other person's lack of effort something important becomes easier to see. In a healthy relationship, everything does not collapse simply because you stop doing all the relational work. There is movement from both sides. He reaches out because he wants to hear from you. He makes plans because seeing you matters to him. He asks questions because your inner world matters. If something feels wrong, he participates in the repair. And when the relationship reaches a point where clarity is needed, you are not the only person interested in where it is going. That does not mean everything will always be 50-50. Real relationships have seasons. One person may be grieving, someone may be sick, work may become overwhelming. There may be times when one carries more because the other genuinely cannot. That is part of love. But supporting someone through a difficult season is very different from permanently compensating for their lack of investment. One is partnership. The other leaves you constantly trying to persuade someone to participate. You feel that difference over time. Because partnership may require effort, but it should not continually require persuasion. You do not need to make him jealous so he notices your value. You do not have to disappear strategically so he finally misses you. You do not need to calculate the perfect amount of distance that will make him come closer. Those are all different versions of the same exhausting question. How do I make him choose me? There is a better question. What is he already choosing? Look at that. Not what he could become. Not what he says when he feels you slipping away. Not the version of him that appears for 3 beautiful days after a painful conversation. Look at what he chooses when there is no crisis. Does he move toward you? Does he protect the connection? Does he make room for you in his actual life? Does his behavior communicate that this relationship belongs to both of you? The love God has for you will not require you to continually prove that you are worthy of being pursued. There may still be waiting. There may be uncertainty at the beginning. There may be moments when you need courage and moments when you need to initiate. But there is a difference between participating in love and dragging someone toward it. And maybe one final fear remains. What if I stop chasing and he really does leave? Then you may grieve, you may cry, you may still reach for your phone some nights. You may wonder whether you should have tried one more time. Stopping the chase does not magically remove attachment. You can know something is unhealthy for you and still miss it. You can understand the truth and still feel the loss. But when you stop carrying everything, you receive something important. You receive the truth. And the truth may hurt, but it is kinder than spending another year trying to turn someone's reluctance into love. If the relationship disappears the moment you stop carrying it, your effort was not protecting the relationship. Your effort was concealing its condition. That realization can break your heart. It can also give your heart back to you. Because now you do not have to keep asking God to help you become better at holding together something that requires 2 people. You can pray differently. God, give me the courage to receive what is mutual and release what I have been trying to force. You are not giving up on love. You are giving up on the belief that love has to be earned through exhaustion. And that does not make you passive. It makes you available for something mutual. There is a difference between fighting for a healthy relationship and fighting someone to have a relationship with you. So, if you have been tired lately, consider the possibility that you do not need another strategy. You may not need the perfect message. You may not need one more explanation for his distance. The next thing you need to see may become clearer when you stop running after what keeps moving away. Let him have the freedom to reveal what he wants, and give yourself the freedom to believe what His choices show you. If this is the season you are in, write this in the comments. I will not chase what requires me to abandon my peace. Before you go, stopping the chase is one decision. Learning how to stay peaceful in the quiet that follows can be much harder. The still point was created to help you walk through that quiet for 30 days with scripture, reflection, prayer, and space to write when your mind wants to run back to what has already been costing you your peace. And if the nights are when the urge to reach out feels strongest, there is a complete audio version too, so you can close your eyes and listen. You can find the still point in the pinned comment or the first link in the description. Come walk those 30 days with me. You should never have to abandon your peace just to keep someone close, beloved. What is mutual will not need you to carry both sides alone.